Welcome, everybody, back to Hot Topic on WTCtv. My name is Paul Anand. I'm here with the one and only star of Arizona, Tony Vela,
Yeah.
WrestlingTradingCards.com, Wrestling Guy Store Phoenix, Mr. Wrestling Arizona, indeed. And you know what we're going to talk about today, Tony? We're going to talk about Leaf trading cards. And why
I'm so glad
specific?
we're talking about Leaf because we get a lot of questions about that here in the
Uh,
store with more people getting into cards.
yeah, I'm gonna pick your brain on those, and I'm gonna ask you a question as to why doesn't Leaf get the same love that WWE endorsed stuff or Panini or Topps. And the reason why this came around is because a few days ago I came across a three quad auto booklet that had 12 different signatures from Leaf. And just to give you an idea, it had like Flair, it had Hogan, it had Goldberg, a couple of mid-tier guys like Jake, Tito, Beefcake, then some throwaway names like Barbarian and Tatanka and Coco Beware. And these all 12 were on one offering. And the sale price was 500 bucks. And I'm like, you know what? If this was a if this was a Topps product, this would be considerably more. And I started thinking, we do now. We're kind of spoiled now, Tony, that we only do the top, five-figure sales. And I don't have a five-figure Leaf sale in wrestling. And I said, yeah, Leaf normally does multi-sports where they'll throw in a Hogan, and we've talked about this many times. You have rolls and rolls of Hogan signatures and Flair signatures, and whoever they get, they get. But they have done some dedicated wrestling. They did the 2020, 2012 and the 2014 Leafs Originals, which were all on card, those silly little cartoon ones. They had the Leaf Ultimates. They had the Leaf Signature Series. And the most expensive card I ever found, and I'm going to pose a question to you, was from that. You remember that 2024 Leaf Metal Legends where we had,
Yes,
instead of it being signed The Rock, it was signed Dwayne Johnson? There was
correct.
a quad auto of Hogan, Flair, Austin, Dwayne Johnson, and it sold for $4,920. And that's a big sale, obviously. Um, but that's just one, and I couldn't find another Leaf Wrestling sale higher than that. Um, and there's been a few, like we had like a 2020 Superlative 8 autograph for 1281. We had a Hogan Rodman for 600. And like I said earlier, remember when we found those Hogan Trumps together? That's what Leaf does. They like mixing and matching, just like that new Topps one with Cena and Otani. Leaf has been doing that with their multi-sport series forever. Um, but that dominant dozen autograph for 500 bucks really had me perplexed. It's like, why is it that Leaf autos don't get the same bread that everything else does? And I'm going to throw that to you and then sort of I'll let you know what the community thought. But why do you think Leaf doesn't get the big numbers on their autos?
I think there could be a number of reasons for that. I think one, just as a company as a whole, it's kind of left a bad taste in people's mouths over the years on just how they conduct themselves, I think. I've never had any problems with them, but
Me neither, so
two,
I don't know about that at all.
yeah, I mean, two, I think it's also been, poor choice in card designs. Um, I think it also stems down to that everything they do is sticker autos, which has always been a big turnoff for collectors who would prefer to have, on card stuff. So I don't know. I mean, you mentioned that quad auto where we had The Rock as Dwayne Johnson. They're using a picture of The Rock that they probably paid Getty Images for the rights to use those images. And then are having The Rock signed just as Dwayne Johnson. And that's a big turnoff too to wrestling collectors who are going to want to have The Rock, not Dwayne Johnson. I don't want a Terry Bollea. I want a Hulk Hogan, you
Yeah, I
know.
understand.
Although I would imagine the Terry auto would probably be far more rare than having a Hogan auto at this point. So I think it's a combination of all those things. Sometimes it's the sizing of these cards, but the ones you're referencing are traditional trading card sizes. Some of them just, I don't know. It's a combination of all those things, and I think that's the sticker auto is going to be the biggest turnoff for me. I think for me.
But what about those 2012 and 2014 Leaf Originals, the ones with the little cartoon images? Those are all on card.
That's also, as you mentioned, cartoon images because they
I think
don't own
that's
the
the problem
rights to
there.
the. That's a problem, I think, right there. And they don't own the rights to the actual images themselves. So if you get an artist to go ahead and draw those things, now you're getting an artist interpretation of something, and it bypasses the copyright stuff. So, and they're done well. Some of them are done really well. Some of them are very kind of cartoonish. Even Leaf put out that Heroes of Pro Wrestling, where they're really cartoonish, where you bought
Yeah,
a box, you got a complete set
weird,
in
weird,
there.
weird looking cartoony.
Oh, they're like gigantic heads and little bodies like that. It's
I
almost like
just saw
having a
it.
Funko Pop animation style.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Well,
It's just weird.
it's been suggested that this particular one with the 12 might have just been a sticker dump. And we've talked about that before. You know, everyone says, oh, well, Hulk Hogan, he's gone now and he can't sign anything else. And I said, well, there's a billion of them sitting in the Leafs warehouse, you know, because
And that's just Leaf. That's just Leaf because there's other places out there, American Icon Autographs, Sean Jacoby out there in San Diego, California. He's been for years having people sign sheets, in addition to also working with Leaf, because I had worked with Sean and Leaf years ago doing some of the 2012, 2014. I sat down with these talents and had them sign those cards. I wrote my name on a lot of those affidavits of just, signing off that I witnessed these signatures. And they'd sign a ton of these things. And they have tons and tons and tons of sticker autos. He's just one of, I'm sure, several guys across the country that probably across the world that have gotten sheets done of stickers. They're just sitting on them for whatever reason.
yeah, because with Leafs, there was obviously a lot of Hogan, a lot of Flair. We've had MJF, we've had Austin, we've had different guys, but a ton of Hogan. Like
Yeah.
if I list off all the things we have on our sites that show the multi-sport, and there's a ton. You know, like Leaf puts out dozens of sets a year, and invariably there's a Hogan in there. But those cards, those Hogans, they just don't get what the other ones do. And it was also suggested to me, other than the sticker dump, sometimes it's a bit of a weird pairing, like, to have guys that don't really go together on card.
Well, specifically, a case in point is that card, that 12 signature card you're talking about. Like Goldberg doesn't fit on that card. The rest
Yeah,
of them are all these legend guys from Bushwhacker Luke all the way to Hogan and Flair are on that card. And then you throw a
yeah.
Goldberg in there. It just seems like
It seems like we're
you kind of ruined it.
yeah, 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 yeah. Now, what about the idea that it's Leaf and not WWE? Like WWE licensed stuff far, far exceeds, when we look at our top sales, that's all it is. I mean, it's the vintage Hogan's, obviously, and then WWE product. We haven't gotten there with AEW or WCW, and we haven't gotten there with Upper Deck or anybody else. It's just basically
Well,
top.
I disagree on the WCW. I mean, Tops did I mean, those cards continue to keep rising in value over the
No, I'm
years. I mean,
talking the top tiers, like the top. Sure, like we had a Randy Savage WCW autograph sell for 11 grand,
yep,
this past weekend versus $500 for 12
yeah,
different autographs, and that shows how we're getting a little bit off topic how off that sale of the entire collection was for $20,000 that went
yep.
a few weeks back, and we'll talk about that at the end of the month.
Yeah, a different episode for sure.
Yeah, on our three count, because Buddy sold all 101 or whatever autographs for 20,000, and yet a Savage alone in a
Yeah,
PSA 9 went for 11 this past weekend. We had a Hogan sell for $8,000 last night. These aren't Leaf kind of numbers. Like I say, that 49.20 for that Leafs medal is the most expensive Leaf wrestling card I can find. And again, I'm not discounting an almost $5,000 card as being insignificant, but it's the only one, and we can go through hundreds and hundreds of cards that have sold for more in the Panini era, in the current Topps era with WWE, and we don't even get close with any of these Leaf
Do
things.
you think with the Leaf stuff too that that its recent sales and the fact that you can only find one five-figure sale, um, do you think that over time that will change,
First
or
of all,
are
I
we?
didn't find any five stickers. I didn't find any
Yeah,
five.
I'm sorry, four-figure sale.
Or
My
yeah,
correction.
I that
Um,
that that's the question. Why? You know,
yeah, but do you think over time that will change? Do you think that 20 years from now we're going to see maybe some more love for Leaf stuff? Do you think that 20 years or 10 years from now when people say, well, I can't afford to go out there and find myself, a Hogan or a multi-signature card or whatever it may be, and Leaf
maybe,
becomes the alternative and
maybe.
becomes starts rising? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, Hogan signed such a huge volume with Leaf. There's no shortage, right? So it's not like we're going to run out of Hogan autographs anytime soon. Despite the fact that he's not selling new, there's going to be this stuff kicking around, and it's gettable. Like you can buy the Hogan Leaf Originals autograph for about 100, autograph for about $150, sometimes even less. But that's low for Hogan. Like a Hogan autograph could be $300-$400 easy, and if you get it in a parallel chrome or if you get it on a
Well,
vintage.
I do tell customers who are coming in here who are getting into cards or are establishing cards kind of thing that, they always ask, like, did you see a big boom after Hogan passed away? Did you sell a lot more stuff? And I'm talking across the board, shirts, figures, cards, whatever. And I said, no. there was no big boom for him. Like the day or day 2 days after he passed away, I did have people coming and trying to hoard stuff, thinking there was going to be a market to sell his stuff, for a premium, and it just didn't happen. It really didn't. I mean, and then I tell people all the time when coming up with cards, there is no shortage to signed Hogan cards. There's no shortage to sign Ric Flair cards. These guys just signed and are just making that they made the money that they can make while they're still on this planet.
Sure.
And afterwards, people are going to try to capitalize on that. And Fleer's got a ton of it. Like you said, it's not just regular wrestling stuff out there. There's multi-sport stuff where you're going to have Hogan on the same card as maybe Gretzky probably, or
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's just there's a lot out there, and it just
Yeah.
doesn't. That also hurts Fleer's value, I think, because Leafs
Relief.
value, so much stuff out there for them, so much.
And if anyone out there is curious, just go on to Price Guide or onto WTC and just type in Leaf and take a look at all the sets, and you're going to see that we have most of them listed, and they've done Decadence, and they've done Chromes, and they've done
Pop
Metal.
Century and Pop Century,
They're very prolific, Leaf. They put out a lot of stuff, and in the sort of mixed world of multi-sport and even just pop culture in general, they're big. And they've done great stuff. And as a company, I don't buy a ton of stuff, and I know Brian's not with them anymore. But for me, it's like they're the number three, the solid number three, and they always have been. But in wrestling, for whatever reason, they just don't get the numbers. And that's what this hot topic was supposed to be about, was to chat about
I,
what.
I'm curious to hear. I know you've done some more stuff on social media, stuff like that, but I'm curious to hear what people's thoughts are from this video on what they think is why the reasons why Leaf isn't getting the love, those kind of signatures. You know, they're, it's interesting to hear different people's opinions on that because some don't like the artwork,
Yeah.
some don't like the designs, some don't like stickers. I think stickers is the biggest turnoff for anybody. And I think if you go back, Paul, and start looking at some of your old pricing of stuff, I'm pretty sure I'd like to make a wager that most of the ones, or if not all of them, that have sticker autos are going to fare far less than the ones that are on
Oh yeah,
card.
yeah. I think that's a no-brainer on that statement. All right,
I consider that all of Leaf stuff is
yeah,
all sticker stuff.
yeah.
That's
But
I think that hurts it.
yeah, but as a company, as a manufacturer of product, and as a contributor to our space, I think Leaf has done an admirable job. I think that
Yeah.
there's some great stuff in there. It doesn't measure up, to the WWE license stuff for whatever reason, but you know, don't discount it is my point. And I'm not. This isn't a dump on Leaf thing. If anything, this is a praising of Leaf. It doesn't quite get the same high end figures, but there's some great stuff that's been made over the years, and they'll continue to make them. So.
I think it's in that same realm as like going through like the TriStar area for
Yeah.
TNA. I mean that stuff is very, very affordable. Nothing really commands gigantic numbers in that, and it's just there's a lot of great design, fun stuff, legends in those sets, and a lot of them are on card. And for that, that's
And that's the difference.
and Leaf has just got the sticker stuff, and I think that's just kind of their MO going has always been sticker, sticker, sticker. Because it's easier to get those things done than to actually get print things and then not have the talent sign those
Right.
things.
Right.
I mean, they've got that Pop Century stuff where like, are you really going to get Robert De Niro to sit down and sign
Yeah.
actual trading cards, or can you just go ahead and get a few card stickers from him from some sort of an event that you just ran into him for?
Right.
You know,
Right.
but a lot of times I'm wondering some of those things because they're so limited, having like an Al Pacino or a Robert De Niro, or they got even
To
like
get them
Megan.
all.
They get everybody. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't think of somebody they don't have now that's on a sticker auto that's low print run on that stuff because maybe they only got them to sign a few. That was it.
Yeah. Like on those Dwayne Johnsons. Anyways,
Yeah.
let's leave it there. Once again, anybody that's not familiar with the Leaf product, check it out. It's some great stuff. And if you guys have any thoughts and you want to add to this, let us know. Why are we not seeing the big prices in Leaf that we've seen with the other ones? But anyways, once again, Paul and Tony for Hot Topic. We'll be back at you soon with something else. And that's it, guys. Thanks very much.